The night began like many others, quiet and ordinary, the kind that slipped by without leaving a mark. Rain tapped lightly against the windows of the small house in Tacoma, and the living room glowed with the soft blue light of the television. Daniel lay stretched out on the couch, one arm across his chest, eyes closed, breathing slow and steady. To anyone watching, he looked peaceful, just sleeping. That was what Emily thought too. At first, Emily stood near the hallway, holding a mug of tea that had already gone cold. She watched him for a moment longer than usual. Something about the room felt off, like the air was heavier than it should be. Daniel had been tired lately, long shifts at the hospital, late nights, early mornings. She understood that life changed after marriage, after years together. Passion softened into routine. Excitement became comfort. She told herself that this was normal. She reached for the remote to turn off the TV when Daniel's phone buzzed. The sound was quiet, almost polite, but it echoed in her chest. Emily froze. The phone buzzed again, vibrating slightly against his shirt. Daniel didn't move. He didn't stir or reach for it. He just kept sleeping. Emily hesitated. She had never checked his phone before, never felt the need. Trust had always come easily between them. But the buzzing continued, and something inside her tightened. She told herself she was only going to silence it so it wouldn't wake him. She picked it up. The screen lit up, bright and sharp in the dim room. One message sat at the top, clear and impossible to miss. I miss you already. Wish tonight didn't have to end. Emily read it once, then again, hoping the words would change. Her fingers went cold. Heart began to race, fast and uneven. She looked at the name above the message, Rachel. The name felt strange in her mind, like a sound that didn't belong there. Emily knew it, though. Daniel had mentioned Rachel before. A new nurse, young, friendly, smart. He had spoken about her, the way people speak about weather or traffic, with no emotion at all. Or so Emily thought. She lowered the phone slowly, as if moving too fast might shatter something. Daniel shifted on the couch, turning his head slightly, still asleep. Emily placed the phone back on his chest, exactly where it had been. Her hands trembled as she stepped away. She didn't say a word. She didn't wake him. She walked down the hallway and closed the bedroom door quietly behind her. That night, sleep never came. Emily lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of rain and the hum of the heater. Her mind replayed the message over and over. I miss you already. Wish tonight didn't have to end. It wasn't harmless. It wasn't work-related. It was personal, intimate, full of feeling. She wanted to believe there was an explanation, a mistake, a misunderstanding. But deep down, she felt a shift. Like the ground beneath her feet had moved without warning. The next morning, Daniel acted normal. He kissed her cheek before leaving for work. He asked if she wanted coffee. He talked about a patient who wouldn't follow orders. His voice was calm, familiar. Emily watched him closely, searching his face for guilt or fear. She saw none that hurt more than she expected. After he left, Emily sat alone at the kitchen table for a long time. The house felt too quiet. She replayed the years they had spent together. College love that grew into marriage, shared dreams, shared failures, late-night talks, quiet mornings. She had believed they were solid, unbreakable, but something had slipped through her fingers without her noticing. Over the next few days, Emily became a quiet observer of her own life. She noticed things she had brushed off before. Daniel's phone never left his side now. He stepped outside to take calls. He smiled at messages and then quickly locked the screen. He showered as soon as he got home, like he was washing something away. Emily didn't confront him. Not yet. She needed clarity, not excuses. One afternoon, Daniel went to the gym after work. Emily stood in their bedroom, staring at his laptop on the desk. It was open, humming softly, the screen dim but awake. She felt a sharp stab of guilt. This crossed a line. But the line had already been crossed, hadn't it? Her fingers hovered over the keyboard before she sat down. The messages were easy to find. There was no secret folder, no password, just a long conversation stretching back. Weeks. Emily scrolled slowly, her chest tightening with every line. At first, the messages were harmless. Jokes about work, complaints about long shifts, shared frustrations. Then the tone changed. The words softened, grew warmer, more personal. I feel like I can talk to you about anything. You make the long nights easier. Emily swallowed hard. She kept reading. I don't remember the last time I laughed this much. I think about you when I shouldn't. Her vision blurred. But she didn't stop. She forced herself to read it all, even when it felt like glass cutting into her heart. There were no graphic details, no explicit words. That almost made it worse. This wasn't about desire alone. It was about connection, about emotional closeness. Daniel was sharing pieces of himself that used to belong to her. Emily closed the laptop and sat back, shaking. Tears rolled down her face, quiet and steady. She pressed her hand to her mouth to keep from making a sound. She felt foolish for not seeing it sooner, for trusting so easily, for believing love protected you from betrayal. That evening, Daniel said he had another late shift. Emily nodded. She smiled. She even told him to drive safely. He leaned down to kiss her, and she let him. His lips felt unfamiliar, like they belonged to someone else now. After he left, Emily stood by the window, watching his car disappear down the street. Her reflection stared back at her in the glass. She looked older somehow, tired, awake in a way she hadn't been before. She didn't cry. That night, she didn't scream or throw things. Instead, she felt a strange calm settle over her, a clarity she hadn't felt since the moment. She read the message. She needed to know the truth with her own eyes. Not the truth hidden in words on a screen, but the truth in real life. Where he went, who he chose. What he did when he thought she wasn't watching. Emily grabbed her keys and jacket. Her heart pounded as she stepped outside into the cool night air. She sat in her car for a moment, hands resting on the steering wheel, breathing slowly. He's not just sleeping, she whispered to herself. Then she started the engine and followed the direction Daniel had gone, not knowing yet how much her life was about to change. Emily drove through the quiet streets of Tacoma with a tight grip on the steering wheel, her heart beating so fast it felt like it would burst. The rain had stopped, leaving the roads slick and reflective under the streetlights. She followed, Daniel's car at a distance, careful not to be seen, careful not to make a sound. Her mind raced, a mix of fear, anger, and heartbreak. She had read the messages, seen the proof, but now she needed to see the truth for herself. Where he went, who he chose, what he did when he thought she wasn't watching. Daniel drove calmly, unaware of Emily's presence. Rachel sat beside him in his car, laughing at something he said. Her hand brushed his arm lightly, as if it were natural, normal. Emily's chest tightened so suddenly she had to take a deep breath. It wasn't just a flirtation. It was comfort. It was familiarity. It was the quiet intimacy of two people who had begun to share more than they should. Emily's hands clenched the wheel until her knuckles turned white. Every laugh, every touch stabbed her like glass. They drove through a series of empty streets, turning down roads Emily barely recognized. Her mind raced with questions. How long had it been like this? Weeks? Months? Why hadn't she noticed sooner? Every small smile he gave her over the past weeks now felt like a lie. She remembered the mornings he had kissed her on the cheek, the casual touches in the kitchen, the quiet "I love yous" that had slipped from his lips like routine instead of meaning. Those words now felt hollow. Daniel's car stopped in front of a small house on a quiet street. Warm light spilled from the windows, soft and inviting. Emily parked across the street, keeping the engine running, heart hammering in her chest. She watched as Daniel and Rachel stepped out of the car together. They moved with an ease that made Emily feel invisible, like she didn't exist. Rachel reached for the door handle first, and Daniel hesitated for a moment before following. There, hands brushed, and Emily felt a cold wave of reality crash over her. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. Emily's mind raced. What could she do now? Confront him here and now, storm inside and demand answers. She wanted to, she really did, but something inside held her back. She needed to see everything, to understand it fully before acting. She stayed in her car, watching. She noted how they smiled, how they leaned slightly toward each other as they spoke. Small gestures, small movements that spoke louder than words ever could. Daniel's laughter had a warmth she hadn't heard in months, and Rachel's touch seemed to complete it. Emily realized painfully that she no longer fit into that space between them. She had been replaced, not by grand passion, but by quiet companionship and emotional closeness. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. Daniel and Rachel finally returned to the car. Emily followed them again, her body tense, her mind buzzing with a mix of adrenaline and dread. They drove through a series of dark streets before turning toward a familiar neighborhood. Emily recognized the route now. She had been here before, but never like this, never watching him leave with someone else. They stopped again, this time outside Rachel's small apartment. Daniel hesitated at the door, his hand on the handle, before he finally went inside with her. Lee's chest felt tight, as if she couldn't breathe. She wanted to look away, to run home, to hide from the reality she had chased into the night. But she didn't. She stayed until they emerged hours later. Daniel's car returned to their home eventually, and Emily waited. She did not call him. She did not text him. She sat in the quiet, feeling every second stretch. When the door opened and Daniel stepped inside, his body tense and cautious, Emily was already waiting. She had placed herself at the kitchen table. Still, though inside her heart was storming. Daniel froze when he saw her. His eyes widened, flickering between surprise and guilt. He opened his mouth but could not find the words. "You weren't sleeping," Emily said softly, without anger, without shouting. Her voice carried quiet authority, the weight of truth. Daniel looked at her, his hands shifting nervously. He avoided her gaze, staring at the floor instead. "I know about Rachel," she continued. "I know about the messages. I know where you went tonight." The words hung in the air like smoke. Daniel finally spoke, voice low and shaky. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't plan it. It just happened." Emily shook her head slowly. Her chest felt heavy, her eyes burning with the effort of holding back tears. "That's what hurts the most," she said. "It's not that it happened, but you didn't even try to stop it. That you let it happen while I was trusting you, believing in us." She stood, her body moving with deliberate grace, like a woman reclaiming herself. "I loved you. I still do. But I can't stay in a life where I am not enough, where your heart and attention belong somewhere else." Daniel reached for her hand, but Emily stepped back. She would not allow comfort. Not now, not after all of this. He opened his mouth to speak, but she silenced him with a quiet, sad smile. "I don't know what comes next," she said. "I don't know if we can repair this, but I know I can't pretend anymore. I can't believe you're just sleeping." The words were simple, but they cut deeper than any argument ever could. That night, Emily packed a small bag. Her movements were calm and deliberate, yet every action carried the weight of heartbreak. She went to her sister's house in Vancouver, the road stretching before her like a chance at a new beginning. She drove in silence, the rain now gone, the streets wet and reflective, mirroring the turmoil inside her. Every turn of the wheel was a choice: to leave, to reclaim herself, to face the uncertainty ahead without the man who had shared so much of his heart with someone else. By the time she arrived at her sister's home, Emily felt hollow, exhausted, and yet awake in a way she had not been for years. The pain was real, and it would stay with her for a long time. But there was also clarity, sense that she had confronted the truth, that she had chosen honesty over illusion. She would heal, she would rebuild. And though her heart was broken, it was hers to mend, not someone else's to take. Emily went to bed that night in a quiet room, the kind of room that had never held her own presence before. She stared at the ceiling, tracing shadows with her eyes, feeling the emptiness settle around her. She did not cry, not immediately. Instead, she breathed deeply, letting herself feel the sharp sting of loss and the strange relief of liberation. She thought of Daniel, of Rachel, of the life she had known and the life she would now find. The thought was bittersweet, a mixture of mourning and hope, but it was honest. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt fully awake. She realized that love, as much as it could heal, could also betray. Trust, once broken, left a permanent mark. But even in heartbreak, there was power. Power to choose, power to leave, power to reclaim a life that belonged solely to her. Emily stared out the window at the quiet street, at the faint glimmer of city lights in the distance, and felt for the first time in a long while that she could breathe, that she could live, that she could be more than a witness to her own heartbreak. The days that followed were slow, but Emily moved through them with purpose. She called friends, reconnected with people she had lost touch with over the years, found solace in work, in books, in small pleasures that reminded her who she was outside of her marriage. Each memory of Daniel and Rachel that surfaced was a sharp pain, but it was tempered by the knowledge that she had faced the truth. She had not pretended. Afternoon, Emily walked along the riverfront in Vancouver, the water glinting under the afternoon sun. She thought about what she had left behind, what she had lost, and what she had gained. Independence, clarity, self-respect. She could not undo the past, could not erase the love that had once defined her life. And that choice, Emily realized. She sat by the window, a cup of tea warming her hands, and watched the city lights shimmer in the dark. The silence was comforting now, not oppressive. It was a space she could fill with her own thoughts, her own plans, her own life. She smiled faintly, a small, genuine curve of her lips. She had been through heartbreak, yes, but she had also survived it. She had faced reality and stepped forward. Emily knew the road ahead would not be easy. Healing was slow, and the pain of betrayal lingered like a shadow. And live for herself again. She could love again someday, perhaps, but it would be on her own terms. The story of Daniel and Rachel was over for her now. She'll never lose herself again. Emily went to sleep that night with her heart heavy but awake, tired but unbroken, knowing that sometimes the hardest truths were also the ones that set you free.